Welcome to Raider Recap. I'm Boston Martinez.
And I'm Matthew Plummer. And today we'll be talking about last Friday's game against the Joshua Owls and the Southwest Raiders.
Yep, moving on from football, we're going to be talking about cross country, how your Raiders lined up against district rivals Arlington Heights, one of the newest cross country meets. And then finally, to wrap it all up, talking about how your Lady Raiders competed against Everman in their district opener. Don't go anywhere, because Raider Recap starts right now. Now moving on to football, let's talk about the game between Southwest Raiders and the Joshua Owls, as your Raiders traveled on the road to defeat the Owls on their own homecoming night as well. So let's break it down quarter by quarter. Like, looking at that first quarter, what did you see?
I think what was important about the first quarter definitely was coming off of, I want to say, defense first, right?
Yeah.
We already had confidence in the plan we had for Joshua. They had a scheme in pro and double slot, and it was just this type of offense that, really only required, our teammates just to really focus on just very specific players. Mm-hmm. Just not like, stretching or going through gaps and stuff like that. It was always, we would have either, outside pressure focusing on the quarterback or focusing on one wide receiver or focusing on the running back. And just the scheme of it was, especially the plan was just be bored with the same player you're looking for every time. And it would be to a point to where even if you might even pass up the ball, just as long as you're hitting the player that you were assigned to. That was definitely one of the main things that, kicked off for us in the first quarter, was to always stick to our assignment and always stick to our job, as we were reminded constantly of it throughout that week. And what was really important, especially when we were focusing on definitely the running game as well as the options for Joshua, as they would have a three-man option, or they would go, they would orbit their wide receivers and stuff like that. All we had to focus on was just one singular player.
Joshua, especially, they really relied on the legs of Eli Martinez. It really seemed like our team really struggled to contain him very much. And you could tell from the beginning it was going to be Eli Martinez versus Martavius Boswell.
Yeah.
Who was going to last longer, whose defense was finally going to be able to make a stop, kind of thing.
I want to say one of the biggest struggles that was happening with the inside runs and the dives against, their running back was just momentum, and especially in the first quarter, as well as getting, off the ball quick and tackling really high. That was just one of the things that needed to be fixed, was that there was a lot of arm tackles and there was a lot of people, making contact really high, and that was, giving the Owls an advantage during their inside runs. But definitely with the plan still that we have, especially when we had our, defensive linemen, get the gist of always pinching, from A to B, not worrying about slanting off or slanting towards another player, stuff like that, but always sticking into inside gap integrity.
Yeah, and definitely seeing that. Moving on to halftime, you could see the Raiders really struggle in that first half for sure. Something that we haven't seen last year, and looking at this year, it's kind of been a pattern lately. Yeah. Struggling against these teams in the first half, down 14-3, wasn't looking pretty. Then moving on to the second half, you see emergence from different players,
right?
Such like Martavius Boswell. More on him later.
Yeah.
Just he's been so dominant. You see, being able to find ways through the defense, nobody else really can.
Yeah, the way that Martavius just works through both sides of the ball is extremely unorthodox, especially when you see him run in offense, where he just pick up speed instantly.
Yeah, and then definitely seeing that offensive line really helped later on in the game. You had a play 3rd and 11, wasn't able to convert, would have made it 4th and 11, but a flag came out against Southwest, which pushed them back 15 more yards, put up a 3rd and 26.
Yeah.
Now, coach decides to go with a screenplay. Boswell gets through with the help of his O-line, able to take it all the way to the house.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. You can see even there, just from that moment, you can already see the Joshua fans start to leave on their own homecoming night. It's crazy. I mean, Boswell just an immaculate player, as we always talk about. I mean, the whole team, really. I mean, offensive line really helping him out all the way through.
It's just the reliance aspect of it. We rely on those guys a lot. But even with some mistakes that happen with the O-line, maybe flags or some penalties and stuff like that, it's always expected of them to continue to perform, to just leave the last play dead and to go on to the next. And that's how the screenplay went on. They focused on their job. They focused on their assignment. They executed, as always, as pretty well as they were practiced. And definitely, as the QB also relied on that lineman, and as Martavis relied on them so that he could get past through secondary and get into the end zone and stuff like that. It was all just reliance on the O-line.
And then looking at that final quarter, defense really showed out. I mean, to first force a fumble and then 2 straight drives shut down, force them to turn over on downs both times. I mean, 3 amazing stops in the fourth quarter. Really needed that. And it's really cool to see that the Raiders on the other side of the ball now, instead of looking to get that final drive to win the game, now being able to try all they can to stop that final drive to keep their lead and win the game.
I think a big part of that fumble, and as well as making sure that that the offense doesn't get any further than at least 10 yards, was all because of Raylan Carter, Devon James, Josh, Victor, and Hessel Kane. It was just dogs on those team.
Yeah, and if you want to see more about Martavis Boswell, we're going to go right into an interview with him right now. Here with Martavis Boswell, a key component, both sides of the ball, but mainly I want to talk about your influence on offense, especially this week. Really kept us into the game and allowed us to break free that second half. You're now averaging 173 yards per game. Extraordinary numbers. I don't know if you're a man of stats, but just talk to me what that number means to you.
It means a lot, like just focusing, doing what I was coached to do, making sure I go through everything right. The grind, since grinding through the whole summer, I knew I would put up big numbers and staying healthy.
Big play you had, 3rd and 26, back in your own territory. You in need of a big play. Well, what did Coach tell you guys before you guys went out there?
Cause in the first half offense, we was struggling. It was it wasn't even a struggle. It was just little mistakes. So when we got to halftime, I'm like, Coach, we gonna win this ball game. We go score, and he going there and tell defense, you go win the ball game. So I come out there and I'm just like, we gotta score, 3rd and 20, and I seen the scoreboard man, I don't want to lose. I want to build this team up. I told the team I'm always had them on my back, so I did all I can.
Finding the end zone for the 3rd time that night. What was running through your head when you finally reached the end zone?
Just blessed, because I put us in the lead with the run that I know we really needed. So just knowing that and knowing defense up next, coach put the biggest dogs on the field to go play defense to try to go win the ball game. And I told Coach, whatever he need me to do, I'll do it.
Now transitioning into cross country, we'll be talking about last Friday's cross country invitational at North Crowley. And so basically, cross country captain Boston Martinez, can you tell us the experience or tell us what happened during that competition or that invitational?
Yeah, well, it was a tough meet. Racing at the Buff, it's a really tough course, about 3 laps on a very hilly terrain. And even though our race started at 7:30, you could definitely feel the heat. And our times really reflected on that. Myself, even though I got 9th place, wasn't really happy with my time. Coming in an 18:01, when I average 1640s, 1630s, like slowing down that much isn't. That's not what I can do.
Right.
And it really struggles. And I mean, you could see that reflected in the whole team. It
Yeah.
wasn't that good.
Right. So talking about teams, one of the other teams that y'all were going against, Arlington Heights, how do you fare up against what you competed in against them between time?
Yeah, so Arlington Heights is going to be a big team and a big rival that we're looking at and trying to take over. Trying to win district for the first time in over a decade, it's no easy task by far, and you definitely saw that this week. A lot of their runners, they normally average about 1730s, and they put up pretty well times. I mean, reflected to mine, most of their runners ran similarly within a span of like 10 seconds. A big group of them together. Averaging this past meet was 1820s, 1830s. So they're like a few seconds off me, but with the rest of the team, they are really they're really making that margin very tough. So it's going to come down to the legs of Luis Hernandez, Zion Williams, if we're going to be able to do this thing.
How do you expect the next event to go?
This next one, Breslin Centennial, it's a big